Hello, beautiful people. I'm really excited to share with you my perspective, my studies, my experiences with the principle of balance, the law of balance. I'm recording this during Libra season, and the balancing forces feel really strong right now. And I was guided to connect or re listen to a book that I read in 2018. And this book is inspiration for what I'm going to share here. The book is called Reality Transurfing. It is by a Russian quantum physicist named Vadim Zeland. And essentially, the main point of what I'll be discussing here, and a part of what was discussed in this book, is that when we are in a space of neutrality, we are clear, solutions and guidance come to us easily. And so that's what I want to share with you. And I love to look at this basic understanding of the law of balance from many different perspectives. And so I will touch on this via physics, astrology, and spirituality when you are in resonance with the balancing forces and when you really put this very simple theory to use, you will see that you will manifest your desires efficiently. You will begin to eliminate problems in your life pretty easily for the most part. And naturally, you will find peace within yourself in your external world. So when you think about it, when we have a strong desire or when we're presented with a challenge, we naturally give importance to the desire and the challenge. Like if we have a problem, we at times tend to fixate on it, right? We want to solve it, we want to overcome the challenge, or when we want a desire, especially in today's world, we want it now. And so that is a natural feeling and a natural experience. Where the imbalance comes into play is when we kind of take it too far and we take it to the extreme by worrying and by obsessing over the desire or the challenge. Therefore, we create excessive importance. In this book, Zeland refers to excessive importance as excessive potential. And so when we are obsessive in giving our attention in a way that is just in worry and anxiety and in obsession and even in fear, right? We are creating this extra energy. Then with putting all of this excessive importance on it, it's in a sense becomes like just untouchable, right? So, in order to balance that, we are being taught to surrender and to let go and find that neutral point. And the balancing forces bring that through with an experience or an event that is essentially a lesson. And I will be talking a little bit more about that in the context of the astrology in reference to Saturn being exalted in Libra. When we consider the law of balance in reference to the material that I am presenting here from the book Reality Transurfing, he mentions that in reference to challenges, the way in which to eliminate the challenges is by not worrying about them. Simply don't worry about them. Make it your goal to find something positive about your challenges, and you will then reach your goal without further effort. So, in reference to your desires that almost seem out of reach, in the book, he guides us to lower the bar of significance. So, you want to do that by identifying your desire. So, this is what I want. And so, what are disciplined actions that I can take towards that? If you have a desire and you're not taking disciplined action, that in itself creates excessive energy, excessive importance. If you are like, oh, I really want this thing, I really want this thing, and like you're daydreaming and fantasizing and visualizing it, but you're not taking the action towards it, then that's just you're creating excess potential, excess importance, right? So you want to have a vision and have a desire and move towards it. And that was an aha moment for myself as I was like the queen of like, I'm putting it out there and I'm going to have it come to me, right? Which, yes, we want to have a balance, right? We don't want to really like overexert ourselves in, trying to do things to get it where we become exhausted. We want to take disciplined action towards it and also allow time and space for that to move towards us as well. And the role of the balancing forces is essentially they are neutralizing the extremes. So if you're not in extremes, then essentially you're in resonance with the flow of balancing forces, and you don't necessarily have to worry about the event in which you have to surrender, and it's this great lesson. So now I want to specifically discuss the law of balance in astrology. So when we think about balance in astrology, we probably all think about Libra. Libra is the archetype or the sign that corresponds or is a symbol for for balance, for justice, for truth, for equality. We tend to see the scales in reference to Libra, right? It is the symbol of Libra. And sometimes we'll see the goddess or Lady Justice as a symbol of Libra, right? As the image of Libra. And she's usually holding scales, or she might be holding scales and a sword, right? Which the sword is a representation of truth, of wisdom, and of pure thought. One of the goddesses that I personally connect to in reference to Libra energy and to balance is the goddess Maat, right? And her signs, what's associated with her is also the scales and the feather, which is the feather of truth. Maat is justice in its divine state. She is cosmic order. She is the personification of what's right, true, real, genuine, upright, honest, steadfast, etc. And what's really interesting is that recently I've learned that Mayat has a counterpart. And so just thinking about this really brings into more of the concept of Libra and the act of relating to others and the role of the two opposites or extremes coming together to create, right? Coming together in that oneness, in that middle space. Her divine counterpart is Tehuti, aka Thoth, the scribe of gods and the master of divine words. Thoth needs the order and harmony of Mayat for his sacred writings and magic formulae to be effective. Likewise, Mayat needs Tehuti, the medium of the mind of Mercury, for her law to be expressed on earth, for she herself is a cosmic principle and detached from the vagaries of human existence. And so it's really interesting to see how two different energies, Mayat being the pure essence of law, of cosmic order and truth, coming into union with the mind, the medium of the mind, the essence of Mercury, essentially coming into balance with that. So it's almost like Thoth is a channel or a vessel for Mayat, essentially. And she needs him to pretty much bring her energy, her essence into some sort of tangible form, whether that be from essentially written word, right? And we see Mayat's energy within the cycles, within her story is also a part of that is connected to the journey of Ra as well. We also have Mayat very strongly represented in the afterlife. Mayat is justice on either side of death, as upon the weighing of the deceased heart against her ostrich feather, Mayat awards every person their due. And what I really love, I'm going to read directly from this book called The Book of Doors. We can see it here without the glare. This Book of Doors is from an alchemical oracle from ancient Egypt. So a lot of what I just shared here is from the interpretation. This is amazing. It has pretty much all the gods, or not all of them, but a lot of them, the main gods in this book, and they give a really good, deep explanation and a very short divinatory meaning of the gods as they show up. And so I want to read directly from this book, the passage on the karmic association with maat. So maat, as justice in its divine state, incorporates the Hindu concept of karma, which means action in Sanskrit. Every action has its reaction, every cause has its effect, every thought is a seed. Yet we are free at any moment to change everything, to overcome any seed we have planted in a past or existent life. In order to change, we need only to be united with the principle of maat, to be totally straight with ourselves. The judgment is the weighing of the heart. The heart is the knowing function, but can only be trusted when the mind is in the heart. Maat and Tehuti are the heart and mind in perfect union. So I love that. And her divinatory meaning in this oracle deck is truth and justice, higher laws operating to influence events. And so Maat is absolutely my chosen goddess, of course, with my connection to ancient Egypt. But she tends to come around when I need to really pay attention to the principles of balance and to implement them in my life. I feel her energy when the balancing forces are very strong, which at this current moment, as I mentioned, I'm recording this in Libra season, and we just had a major solar eclipse in Libra just a few days as I am, before I recorded this. And so I really feel the balancing forces, and I feel Goddess Mayat's energy very strongly. Just to share a bit more about the law of balance in astrology, most of us know that the planetary guide of Libra is Venus, and Venus corresponds to harmony, union, attraction, and essentially bringing energies together, bringing them to the center. And when I think about just the center point, that is the 0 point, which even in this book, Reality Transurfing, Zeland mentioned that the 0 point, that center point, is unconditional love, right? This is the point of everything and nothing. This is the point of oneness. You can even see this being the space of nirvana, right? Where you have peace and serenity. You are able to come away from the extremes. You are able to pull in those energies and balance it out to one, right? So when we have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, that creates this very safe, neutral space. And with Venus, Venus has a strong representation in a role of bringing things into balance. And so she can get a perspective of each side and lead them or guide them to the middle. Venus is a beautiful expression and guide in intuitively understanding what either you want or the other party wants, right? And so, in the reference of a single individual, or just we can even think of, now I'm getting a little off topic, but we can think about the archetype of Taurus, where there's a focus on personal security, there's a focus on resources and comfort. And with Taurus and Venus as the guide of Taurus, that is more of your sense of worth and your worthiness. So that's a really good point that is important in reference to the essence of Venus and therefore balance, right? So if you know what you desire, what's comfortable for you, and what's secure for you, you begin to attract in things that are in resonance with that, or experiences that are in resonance with your truth, with your security and your comfort. And on the side of relationships, once you have that sense of peace within yourself, that sense of balance within yourself and knowingness, then you will attract in, partners and experiences that are in resonance with that. Versus like when you are in the extreme and you are in low self-worth, or just, you don't feel that you're worthy of this, and that. And so that feeling within itself of unworthiness is the imbalance, right? And it is that excessive importance through like worry and fear and doubt, all those quote unquote lower vibrational feelings. Then you will attract in events and people and experiences that are essentially a lesson to help you to sever or separate from that distortion, right? That excessive importance of not feeling worthy, and not feeling supported, because again, that's not truth, right? And so with the law of balance, it is it is it's anchored in truth, right? It's anchored in truth, with that, which that truth, as we can see it or perceive it from a very philosophical or spiritual perspective, is unconditional love, is source, is oneness, and is everything and nothing at the same time, if that makes sense. And so I want to talk about just briefly the dignities of the planets in reference to Libra. And so, dignities in astrology point to specific planets that have some sort of either exaltation or some depression or fall or exile or detriment in reference to this particular sign. And Venus's dignity is that she is at home in Libra, right? It is her natural home. When I think about the separation, when I think about the lesson and even that essence of karma in reference to the law of balance, and therefore in the context of Libra, I think about Saturn. Saturn is the planet of cycles, is the planet of law, authority, rules, and karmic energy. And so it is no coincidence, or it makes sense that Saturn is exalted in Libra, right? And so what that means essentially is that Saturn is in a space where it can really efficiently execute its intention, its purpose, right? As I mentioned with Saturn, or I guess maybe I didn't mention Saturn's intention, so to speak, is um, essentially is teaching lessons. It is the teacher of the karmic lessons, of life lessons or lifetime lessons, so that we may learn. And therefore, through the learning, through the lesson, we can then move forward with efficiently accomplishing whatever purpose our soul has for this lifetime, and say many lifetimes, right? Or karmic healing, and just our experiences over cycles of time, so to speak. And so Saturn essentially is I look at Saturn as the adjudicator also. It's like, okay, this is what's happening. We're making a decision on this, or like almost in kind of a lower type way, the Punisher. I could see Saturn in a sense. And so it's the container, it's the restriction, right? And Saturn also, it corresponds to separation, to dry energy. And so when Saturn is exalted, and thinking about Saturn and Libra in the context of the law of balance, we experience those lessons again as a way in which we are needing to surrender or release the excessive importance, which usually comes forth as something that might be experienced as unpleasant. And it doesn't have to always go that route, but that's what we've experienced. Like those hardest lessons are really teaching us to surrender and come to our truth. And I mentioned many different ways that what that can look like. And one of the biggest ones is like the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job, or anything of that nature, right? Or something that you really desired and put on a pedestal. I hate to use this as an example. I don't feel that my mother put her car on a pedestal, but I'm very curious of her attachment to her car. And unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, her car was stolen. Like, out of all the infinities in the neighborhood, the fact that she even lives next to a policeman, because she lives in a townhome, I was very surprised that her car was stolen successfully. She hasn't found it, and it's been like 2 or 3 weeks. And so that is something that, it's like when you have a strong attachment to something in a way that's obsessive and not healthy, it might be taken away from you. And that's the way in which we might experience these balancing forces neutralizing the energy. And that comes in, there's a deeper lesson. And so again, when in reference to overcoming challenges, especially if they're recurring challenges, we really want to start to look at the situation from a detached perspective, which is another correspondent of Saturn and to really see the positive in what's happened in the past, or the positive of the challenges that you're having right now. Like, say if you are in scarcity, or you have these goals where you need more resources, right? In the midst of that experience, you're learning how to budget, you're learning how to be resourceful, you're learning of what you truly desire, what you truly need to sustain your lifestyle, so to speak, and what's in alignment with your truth, right? And when that lesson clicks, then you receive that thing, that person, that job. And so Saturn in exalted in Libra is a beautiful example and just correspondent of how everything is like, connected, and how we're all connected to that truth, right? And just the sense of, that's so interesting that Saturn would be exalted in Libra. So I want to talk about the other dignities in reference to Libra and the law of balance. So the sun is considered to be depressed in Libra, right? And so if we had this Saturn that's exalted, that's like in high vibrations and high regard, the sun is in the opposite position. So why would this be? This is really interesting that the sun would be kind of in a lower vibration in Libra. And my understanding of this is, when we think about the sun in reference to Leo, when we think about the sun being the center of everything revolving around the sun, there is this, especially the sense of ego, right? And not necessarily ego being in the, like in the negative way, but just more so of the experience of ego in actuality, or in the totality of our experience here. We are learning to balance the ego, or surrender the ego when it comes to our experience here on earth, our purpose here on earth. In a balanced state, the sun, we want to express our individuality, express our energy. And with the sun in Libra, Libra is the sign of, these two parts are coming into union with all things. And so if the sun is like me and these things, then that to me, that kind of makes sense why it's like, okay, we need to move away from the individual in this case, and let's bring everything together and realize that you are a part of everything, right? Everything and nothing at the same time. Mars is considered to be in exile or in detriment in Libra. And so Mars is a very passionate, independent representation of ourself, our identity, who it is that we are, right? And so if we think again about the context of Libra, of realizing that you are a part of everything, and releasing that independence in a sense of not necessarily being dependent, but finding the balance, right, of the interdependence, that's going to be important. And so this is why Mars is considered to be in exile, or far away from its comfort zone, right? Because it's used to being like, this is all about me. I'm going to act on my independence, my freedom. And when Mars is in Libra, it's like, oh, there's another thing to consider. And I can't just act on my own free will in the sense of my own desires and passions. I have to really consider another thing, right? And find that balance in the union. And just looking at the signs that are associated with Mars and Sun, the Sun is associated with Leo, and Mars is associated with Aries. Aries is, it is the opposite sign of Libra, and it is the one, right? It's the one person, it's the self, and Libra would be considered the others. With the sun is actually exalted in Aries, right? As the sun is about that individuality. And so both of this Leo and Aries has a focus on being self-centered, not to say that in a bad way, just like literally everything's focused on the self, right? And we want to be in consideration of the other energy, the duality of the things, and bring it into union. So hopefully that gives you a clear understanding of the dignities in reference to Libra and the law of balance. And finally, when we consider Libra season and the beginning of Libra season as far as the solar cycle, The equinox point is the point, astronomically speaking, is when the sun straddles both hemispheres. That equinox energy is that moment of just being in balance with the light and the dark. And it's a very short period as we then either move into the essence of autumn, where the darkness is growing in time, or if you're in the southern hemisphere, then you're moving to the spring, right? Around that Libra equinox time. And then that would be your daylight hours are getting longer, right? And so we see this theme of duality in nature and in our practices, spiritual practices and whatnot, even if it's only for a moment. That essence of balance and what we experience at that time is pretty profound. My question is, do you believe that the natural world and the universe as a whole is consistently or constantly seeking a state of equilibrium? And is it possible that the universe will ever find balance and order? This is a good time to talk about the law of balance in physics. And don't worry, this is going to be really short because I know physics isn't necessarily for everyone, but I do want to just share how science supports this theory or affirms this theory. I love when science validates a theory or some sort of metaphysics or spiritual practice or understanding. I don't necessarily need the science to do it, but I do see science as that last stepping stone before us as a collective. It's just like, yes, the science says it, so it's definitely true. And when you start to see the synchronicities between different perspectives, and it just really brings it all to a space of oneness, to a space of being in the sense of everything and nothing at the same time. Like it's all connected, right? So it affirms that. And that's what I am really connecting with the law of balance in these different perspectives. In reference to the law of balance in physics, this is what we tend to refer to as equilibrium. And so an object is in equilibrium when the sum of all forces is net zero, meaning that it is either at rest or in constant motion, no acceleration, right? So all the forces that are exerted on the object is essentially balance. It's at a net zero. They all balance each other out, right? And so we have that zero reference too, right, of neutrality. This is also enclosed within Newton's first law of physics, which states that an object at rest will stay at rest, and an object in motion will stay in motion with the same speed and direction unless acted upon by external force. That external force definitely takes a little bit extra energy outside of the balance to force it in a particular direction. Again, does nature tend to naturally want to find a space of equilibrium, right? And so once there's an external force that comes into play, that brings things out of balance, and naturally forces will come forth to neutralize that energy. So an example of equilibrium are stars and planets. They are in a state of hydrostatic equilibrium. The internal force pulling the planet's mass towards its center is balanced by external pressure from within the planet, resulting in the spherical shape of a planet. So the universe is chaotic, and it takes a very precise balance of the forces, right, to manifest that. As far as the benefits of an object being in the state of equilibrium in the context of physics, is that a state of equilibrium is beneficial because it represents a stable and predictable condition where no net change occurs within a system, right? And so this allows for analysis and calculations, therefore making it crucial for understanding and predicting the behavior of objects in various scenarios. Right? So what I love about this, just thinking about it in different contexts, right? In different contexts, is that when something is at rest, when you're in the space of neutrality, everything's balanced, you can really get a clear understanding of what is happening in nature, what is happening in the system. And from that understanding, you can then make predictions of the future. You can kind of understand how behaviors within nature happen, right? And so I like to zoom out of that in a bit and think about the context of spirituality and how when we find ourselves in this space of neutrality, which can look like peace and clarity, or in that space of peace and stillness, we will then acquire clarity. The way in which we perceive neutrality is, again, it is the 0 point. The 0 point can equate to oneness, source, nirvana, even like when you find that when you're in meditation and you find that place of peace, that feels like serenity, that feels like calm and nirvana. And that neutrality, that place of stillness the way we access this point essentially is, again, through meditation, through quiet moments and focused attention. So ways that I like to do that aside from meditation is I like to listen to certain frequencies like singing bowls and different high frequency bells. That's just my way of connecting to the center point, connecting to, and I do see the center point also as the solar plexus, or some people can look to the heart. The heart might be a better representation of the center point as it is the connector, right? It's the nexus of all the energy within us. And you can also do that by candle gazing. That's something I'm doing currently is, staring into a candle for 5 to 10 minutes to really access that point of balance, the point of peace. And you're focusing your attention. And again, what you gain from being in this at this point of neutrality is clarity and that connection to the divine, feeling at one with your divine essence and your truth. And that comes forth as well when you are in a space of clarity. Like that's the indicator that you are in alignment with truth. And I have also, there's so many ways you can reach this space, but recently I was doing Tara practice, which is a Buddhist practice I do at least once a month. And I was in a really bad space. I was like in fear and having anxiety and everything. And I wanted to go to the extreme to numb, right? I wanted to go to that 0 place in a different way initially. And I was like, okay, I can just have some wine and like forget about it, right? But then I told myself that, okay, the problems are going to be there in the morning, right? So how do I really truly, what's the truth of that stillness? What's the truth of finding the peace, the true way for me? And what I did was I sat down and I did the Tara practice. I did my mantras, sat in silence for like a couple minutes, and then I pulled some cards. And just in that space, right, in that connection to the divine, I was able to really gain clarity on my situation. And the clarity that came through to help me move through what I was having anxiety about was candle gazing. It was like candle gaze with a yellow candle. And as you light the candle, or after you light the candle, say your affirmation 3 times. And then after you candle gaze, read over your story about, your vision, but reading that as if this is who you are, or this is reality and truth. That all came from finding this space of peace. That place of peace, that center point essentially is within all of us. And this is why I am visualizing the solar plexus as this is that divine light, that spark of divine essence and fire that we can connect with, right? That is an embodiment of divine intelligence within us. And it is connected to the source energy outside of us, right? And this brings to mind cosmic order. I've seen it also referenced to cosmic sympathy, or cosmic sympathy is within cosmic order. Cosmic sympathy, according to Hermetic philosophy, is that there is an invisible link between celestial and terrestrial entities connecting all aspects of nature. Divine energies emanate from the core of these celestial bodies, therefore allowing the experienced practitioner to draw down these energies in support of their divine will. As above, so below, as within, so without, all is one, and God is the center point. God being source. When I go back to the physics with the sun or the symbol of the sphere, how that core within the sun or the core within the planet is in balance with the energy field around that single point. From a 2D perspective is the circle around the point. In a 3D perspective, that's the sphere. And it's that beautiful representation of balance, of spirit, of consciousness and source, and the balance of its external world, right? Its sphere of influence, it's energy filled, right? And so when you have those in perfect alignment, you get a sphere. I want to bring this full circle and just bring it back to where the inspiration came from in reference to the law of balance. I wanted to share all of this with you in hopes that you are able to bring this into practice in your daily life so that you can manifest your desires more efficiently. You can eliminate your problems within your life, as well as finding the place of peace within yourself and the external world. And one of the biggest points here is that we get to choose what is important, right? We get to choose what we are in alignment with. And the way in which to choose this effectively is by being in alignment with our truth, right? Being in balance with the principles of balance. And the way in which to do that essentially is to release any excessive importance via worry, obsession, anxiety, and fear. If there's a desire that you have, know that it's important, hold respect for it, and then take disciplined action to move towards it. There's no need to hype it up or, of course, we want to share and talk about it and celebrate with those that we care about. And at the same time, again, taking the disciplined action towards that is essential. So again, try this out for yourself to see if it works. I would love to hear your thoughts and comments and experiences in the comment section below. Please like the video. Please subscribe if you enjoy my content, as I will be sharing more videos like this. Thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you in the next one.